Slept on Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Shocker represents a low point, perhaps the lowest point, in the career of a horror master, Wes Craven. With lazy and uninspiring writing, in addition to a mishap of ridiculous plot points, this is a film that is best and easily forgotten.
Proof positive that Wes Craven is not any kind of master of horror.
A really wacky ride.
Shocker is low voltage.
The acting is lame. The soundtrack is so 80s, it almost stinks of Hulkamania. The effects have aged so badly, and the story is a pretty undercooked goulash of low-hanging horror tropes.
A gory thrill show for underdeveloped sensibilities. All right, welcome to this week's episode of Slept on Cinema. Today we are diving into the criminally underrated Shocker. I am Stan Steamer.
I am Grove Street.
And let's get right into it with the rotten premise.
After being captured for a series of gruesome murders, Horace Pinker, a television repairman, faces execution by the electric chair, but a deal with the devil allows him to come back as electricity. Once he changes into his new form, Pinker goes after the detective that brought him down, Lieutenant Don Parker, as well as Parker's adopted son, Jonathan. However, Jonathan's mysterious connection to Pinker through dreams might help track the killer's moves. 27% tomato meter, 31% audience score.
Really shocking ratings.
I can't believe it. This is the first time we've done a movie just that I hadn't seen yet. So this is going based on just your recommendation for this movie. And I'm so glad we chose it. But yeah, I and you brought this up before. I remembered one thing about this movie, even though I hadn't seen it, and it was walking through the video store, and I remember the box cover. All-time box cover. I was scared to sometimes even go down that aisle because of that box cover, but I had never actually seen the movie.
Yeah, it's an interesting movie. I think it's obviously Wes Craven is, as was mentioned in some of his reviews, well regarded, right? He's one of probably the greatest horror directors of all time. So I think probably a lot of what happened here is people are comparing this against other films or against expectations of what they have for what a Wes Craven film looks like. And this came out in 1989. It was five years after the first Nightmare on Elm Street. And I think in a lot of ways, this is sort of a reaction to Nightmare on Elm Street. So Wes Craven had done Nightmare on Elm Street, incredibly successful. He was involved in the first one in 1984, and then he didn't direct any of the rest of them before this movie came out. Shocker came out in 1989. I think Freddy Krueger had sort of gotten away from what Wes Craven intended there, and I think he was a little bit annoyed about the direction of that other series. This film, he signs on with Alive Films, the production company here. And I guess they were known for just being hands-off in terms of what the directors could do. So I think Wes Craven's experience with Nightmare on Elm Street was that some of the folks involved with that film dialed back what he wanted to do with Freddy Krueger in terms of the evilness, the violence and all of that. And Alive Film said, "Hey, let's do this. We can do whatever you want. Go right in it and just go wild." And I think you can see that in this film. I won't give anything away till the second half, but I think that you can very much feel that hands-off approach where maybe he had felt a little restricted in some other films, and this was just a chance to let loose. Another interesting nugget about Alive is their only requirement in terms of marketing the movie or anything to do with the movie at all was that they needed Wes Craven's name above the title of the movie in any sort of production. So they realized that they had a name brand in Wes Craven and said, do whatever you want, but we want your name all over the marketing here. And I think that was very successful. So another interesting thing about the film, originally, I guess it was first pitched to be a TV series, and we can talk about it a little bit later, but I think that some of that you can see in the finished product of the film. Wes had pitched it to Fox, which I think makes a lot of sense. But for one reason or another, who knows? I guess it was the 80s TV was a little bit different then. They didn't think that it would be a viable television product. So yeah, it came out in 1989. It did not take down its first weekend. It went up against the third weekend of Look Who's Talking, and somehow couldn't knock Look Who's Talking off, which is mind blowing.
The first Look Who's Talking, not two.
The first Look Who's Talking. Yeah,
that makes sense.
So gross $4.5 million. Its opening weekend ended up just over 16.5 overall. So not terrible. I think having some of that background on the sort of the TV series, and then just Wes Craven being able to let loose on this is instructive for how you view the end product here.
Yeah, I saw that it grossed about 4 times its production budget, and even outgrossed Halloween and Friday the 13th sequels that came out that year as well. So it did better than some known movies that were already being made into sequels.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it made probably the production company and probably a bunch of other folks probably made a good amount of money on this.
Bolo, be on the lookout.
Bolo, be on the lookout. Let's get into it.
There's a lot in this movie to be on the lookout for. As we said before, it's important to keep your head on a swivel when watching this movie because there's a lot that's going on.
That's 100% right. I think this movie, every time I watched it, I caught so many more things every time. It's just a really fantastic watch. For my first Bolo here, I'm just going to go with the category of television. I'm just going to say, just keep your eyes out for everything related to television. I'm talking Bolo for news anchors, Bolo for televisions themselves, Bolo for TV remotes. Just it's maybe a bit of a cheat here, but just the whole category of television. It's everywhere.
Yep. This is not a movie to watch with your cell phone in your hand. You should be dedicated to this movie so you can see all the things to look for. I'll go with Loose Concussion Protocols.
Probably in that same vein, I'm going to say Bolo, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation gone wrong.
I'm going to piggyback on that, Bolo. And this is something that's oddly come up a couple times on our podcast in the past. Well, this is, I think, the second lip biting or mouth biting.
Yeah, a strange amount of mouth-related things are in this movie because I'm going to toss another Bolo mouth item out there. Bolo, a pair of digital floating lips. You know it when you see it.
That's a great one. Bolo, an unexpected crotch shot, which always seems to make our list.
I'm going to go a Bolo twofer here. One, Bolo, the Vibe-O-Matic chair, and Bolo, the Vibe-O-Matic chair that comes alive.
That's a great one. 2 great ones. Bolo John Tesh. If you don't know who he is, he's the creator of the great NBA jingle for NBC years ago, as well as the Bobby's World cartoon intro.
All right. There's, like I said, there's so many. I could feel like I could go on.
Keep going. Let's keep going.
I got to get at least 2 or 3 more going in here. I'm going to go Bolo, a surprising Timothy Leary cameo.
Oh, good one. Bolo, reappearing and disappearing limp.
All right. This is a very 1980s Bolo, but Bolo, a waterbed.
That's a great Bolo. And I'll do a Bolo blasphemy and priest reactions to it.
All right, my last Bolo here. Be on the lookout for a very creepy birthday greeting.
Yep, watch out for that one. All right, move on. What drink to pair with the movie? So I'll go first on this one. The liqueur Blue Curacao, which is like an orange liqueur. I think you could put that in pretty much any cocktail so that it's like an electric. It's a little on the nose, but it feels like she's sort of having like an electric drink. So maybe like a blue margarita with some salt on the rim because Pinker's a little salty.
I like that a lot. I think that sounds fantastic. I am going to go with a Long Island iced tea because this movie has a little bit of everything in it.
Oh, that's a great one. Yep. Maybe too much in it. I don't know. All right, we'll get to the movie. I know you'll enjoy it, and we'll see you on the other side.
We are here today to bear witness to the execution of Horace Pinker. Prisoner, have any final words?
Yeah. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
I don't think he's dead. Contact. He's among you.
Now, Wes Craven brings you his greatest creation.
No more!
Shocker.
Welcome back. That was a thrill ride. I think we'll probably talk about this, but I feel like I just watched 3 movies.
Yep, it definitely felt like 3 movies that we just watched.
All right, so should we dive into the draft?
Let's go right in. Very, very good draft class. Lots of talent. Do you want to start off?
Sure. This is a bit of a strange one, and we did address it before, but I feel like if I don't take it 1-1, I'm just never going to get it. I'm drafting the movie poster.
Yep.
It is.
I'll cross that off my list.
The greatest movie poster I think I've ever seen. You know, if you're listening to this and for some reason haven't seen it, Google it right now and look up the cover, because it is attention grabbing. You immediately have a sense of what style movie it's going to be. You know that it's going to be in your face. You know, it's going to be wild. I know I walked by this at Blockbuster probably for years before I saw the movie, just because it was almost too terrifying to consider watching as a child. But eventually I got the nerve up to watch it and was not disappointed.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I hadn't seen this movie until you brought this up to watch. And I remember this movie poster in a specific aisle in Video Paradise in Dedham. And I was afraid to go down that aisle in the horror section because of this movie poster. And it's not like just a fake movie poster. It's actually a scene from the movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's perfect. It's, you know exactly what's going on. It's not complicated. It's simple. It's memorable. You know, this came out in 1989 and people are still talking about it, not just us.
My first pick, the first round, is going to have to be the Shocker song from the soundtrack, which a little bit of background on the Shocker song is it's made by the group Dudes of Wrath, which was a super group formed specifically to make that song for this movie. People in this band include Paul Stanley from Kiss, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, Alice Cooper. They're all on that song.
Wow.
Yeah, and as a number of other like rock legends. It's not my forte for music, so there's a lot of other people too. But it was a super group made just for this movie.
I mean, that's the whole soundtrack in general was fantastic. I thought it fit the movie very well, and a lot of that sort of 80s rock.
Yep, no more Mr. Nice Guy right at the execution scene. Phenomenally timed.
Perfectly placed. Perfectly placed.
This is tough. Second pick of the first round. I'm going to say I'll draft scenes where there's someone fighting against themselves, especially like a specific body part. Like if you saw Evil Dead or Army of Darkness, Fight Club, or Idle Hands, anytime, and I'm specifically referencing like Coach trying to control his own hand, and just anybody else who was trying to like fight the possession. Any movie where someone is fighting a certain part of their own body, I'm already in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I like that. I like that a lot, because you can see the battle of good and evil happening just in one person. I mean, I imagine if you're an actor, that's probably got to be like a bucket list item. You're like, I need in my career at least once to have one of these on-screen scenes where I'm fighting myself. I imagine that's like top of the list for a lot of people.
If I was an actor, that would be number one for me for sure.
I am going to go with the third act of the movie for my second round pick. I mean, I think clearly this was a movie in 3 parts. It really could have been 3 movies. It felt in many ways like 3 movies. And I think each act got a little bit crazier, right? Like you have the first act, which sort of felt very similar to Nightmare on Elm Street, sort of shifting dreams, reality, drifting in and out of what's real, what's not, and a bit of some hybrid there. The second act, you have the body jumping, which I think is a pretty common, like there are entire movies just based around that premise.
Fallen being one of them.
Yeah, that jumps to mind. That was a great one. I think there's a number of others. That was great. But the third act, that was unlike anything I've ever seen. Like that to me really sealed the deal on this being a totally slept on movie. I thought that was just, everything in it was just bonkers. It was totally insane. It was super fun. I just loved that third act. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it reminded me of the movie Stay Tuned, which almost made our cut. It gets like 55% in the audience and sub 50 in the tomato meter, but it was like a horror movie of Stay Tuned, where you go in between different channels that somebody else is watching.
Great film. For my last pick in the standard draft, I'm going to go with the colors in the movie. And this is also one of these ones and this comes up a lot for us, but I feel like there was quite a bit around the colors that I don't understand, that I'm sure you talk to someone who's smarter than us and they could go all on and on and on about the symbolism here. But from what I could understand is the colors were awesome. You had really contrasting dream worlds that were these dark, dark blues. And then you had these really violent scenes that were really red. And then you had these pure scenes with the girlfriend who was all white. And the colors also shifted throughout the movie. I was reading about this, and I have no idea if this is true, but that apparently they kept repainting the scenes to be slightly more and more dim to try to signify in some way that it was moving closer into the main character's subconscious, which was represented by blue in the early parts of the movie. So I thought the colors really were just fascinating.
The color scheme of the movie was really, really incredible. And even a bunch of the reviews that when I was going over them, even a lot of the bad ones couldn't leave out like, well, it was very well shot. And, it looked very impressive for a lot of the movie. So they even like people who didn't enjoy the movie, I think have to recognize that the colors were really impressive. Let's see, the second pick of the third round, I'm going to have to go with Rhino's friendship. He doesn't get a lot back for it, but Rhino is always there to help Jonathan, even when Jonathan is pleading for him not to be there. He just comes out of nowhere all the time. He always has his back. And I think if you have someone in your life who's as good a friend to you as Rhino, then you're doing well.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. He was I feel like it was a common 80s film character.
You need your rock best friend who's
right
down for whatever. All right, I'll take the first pick in the sleeper draft, the sleeper round. I wonder if you did this. I asked my wife. She did this for like a week, she said. I definitely did this for a time period, but wearing your watch on the inside of your wrist instead of the outside. There's a couple times when he looks at his watch and it's on the inside of his wrist. He even taps it to make sure it's working, but it definitely puts you back in a certain time frame when you see a wristwatch on the inside of the wrist.
Oh, totally. I mean, I definitely tried that at probably a handful of times because I don't know, why not give it a shot? I feel like I still see some people do it from time to time, and it is always strange.
Yeah, it'll be like an older person in a banking suit who's like 50 plus, and they'll be checking their inside of their wrist when they're late for work.
Yeah. It's like, I can know the time, but you can't. So I pay this watch. It's mine. I am going to go for my sleeper pick, and this is very brief, but I'm going to go with the hat tip gesture, but when you use a giant knife to make that gesture. So, Pinker did that once. It was after he had crossed from one building to the next and then dropped the ladder. It just looked really badass. I was like, that's just a solid move.
That's a great one. Yep, that's a great pick. I'm just going to throw an honorable mention in here. I liked Piker's TV repair shop slogan. We do it in your home, which gives you a little inside look as to what's going on in Piker's mind. It's not very good.
Yeah, that's a great one. I thought all the stuff in the first act, everything that had to do with his actual TV repair shop, I thought was fantastic. I thought like the scene in there with the hidden room was great. I thought all the TVs with just violent imagery on them in that shop and all the weird tools and sparking things. I just thought that whole thing had a great just aura to it. Like I feel like I could have spent more time in that creepy TV repair shop.
Yeah, they said they wanted it to look a little bit like in the beginning of the original Freddy when he's in his workshop working on the glove. Like that was him tinkering with the TV.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I thought everything in there was great. I thought that, especially when that pool of blood seeping out from that hidden room, I thought was such a great visual when they were looking for the cop that had suddenly disappeared. It was a great scene.
That blood came out fast. Anything else? Or are we going to move on to One Change to Be a Blockbuster?
Yeah, I think we can roll right into that. I'm going to go with, and we've already sort of touched on this a bit, but I think you make this 3 movies and you have not only one blockbuster, but you have 3 blockbusters. And there's been some recent success. I know we've both enjoyed the Fear Street series that came out on Netflix this past year, where they took sort of one story, but broke it into 3 parts and had each part presented in an entirely different way. And I think they probably drew some inspiration from this film, because I think in the 3 arcs of this story, the three phases, Act 1 is its own movie. Act 2 is it's a very different movie, and Act 3 is a different movie from the first 2, but yet they're the same story. And I think there is a feeling of some of sort of the pacing, particularly in the first act. So it seems to slow down and then speed up and then slow down, and suddenly like, wow, I'm at the end of this first act already. How did we get here? But yet we're clearly over a third into the movie and things haven't even really gotten going. The electrocution hasn't happened yet. So I think you stretch each one of those out into a full feature film and sort of lean in a little bit more to each of the elements that made the 3 different acts so unique. I think you got 3 winners right there.
I think that's the answer for sure. If you don't make it into 3 movies, then you certainly can shave off 40 minutes of the movie. I mean, an hour and 50 minutes. It did drag here for a little bit. And like you said, it took 30 minutes or 40 minutes before he even became electricity. I think it was about 40 minutes of the movie before he became electricity. And that seems to be a big part of the movie. The opening scene is just a little goofy. Like, we didn't need him to get a concussion for him to realize his powers. Or if you're not making it into 3 blockbusters, then at least shave off some time and get him into the electric form a little bit sooner.
You could even, I suppose, make a 4th movie of some sort of horror comedy spoof in the beginning. That's just the hijinks on the football team, and
it's a very close team. All right, our best of, which changes based on the movie, our best of is best possession. So the best possession of the movie. What is your choice?
They're all great, but for me, I think this is an obvious one. It's the little girl. Yeah. I mean, you with the first moment you see her on screen, you know exactly what's going to happen with the body jumping. And then the scene where she gets possessed and she's fighting with the jogger. And I think that jogger is Wes Craven's son. A little random tidbit there.
Yep.
But she's sort of fighting with the jogger. And then you see the look come across her face. And then she just spits on the ground. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think she has the best limp of anyone that becomes possessed by him, too.
Great limp.
Oh, that's a great choice. I'm going to go with the Barca Lounger. I think possessing a chair, it's 1A, 1B here with a little girl, or the Barca Lounger which led to this Barca Lounger is going to kick your ass. Amazing quote.
Yep, that was a great one. It was great because you sort of that chair had been in so many shots before then too, that it was sort of like, why do they keep showing this chair? What's the big deal about this chair? And then it all comes together. The one other one that I did like too, and it wasn't that great of a possession, but it was the first possession, the sort of reluctant doctor from the electrocution, and only because she gets electrocuted, she's unconscious. They're carrying her out hurriedly into the car, and suddenly she snaps awake, and it's just like, leave me alone, I'm fine. And it's just like, to say, can you imagine just being totally knocked unconscious after being electrocuted and then being so angry at these people that are carrying you out and to say, leave me alone, I'm fine. I just need to lie down. I think
that was Wes Craven's daughter who played that.
Yeah, the whole family affair in this.
All right, we're going to move on to spin-off ideas. What would you suggest?
So I think an obvious spin-off, and maybe this has been done, I don't know, but I think you can update some element of that third act, but in the internet, where instead of him jumping through TV, maybe he's evil jumping through social media platforms or something like that. I don't know exactly how you do it, but I feel like there's a hit right there.
I couldn't agree more. That's a great idea. We're all now so much more linked than ever. He could get wherever he wanted to. But I'm going to stay in the same time and have it pick up right after this movie ends and make it a TV show where Jonathan uses his TV and electricity each week to stop heinous crimes and murders from happening. He flips the script on his evil dad and becomes like a crime fighter and uses his TV powers for good. And when in a jam, he can always call on the powers of his deceased girlfriend, Allison, to use her power of good to help him get out of a bind. But he dedicates his life to stopping murders from happening by using the TV.
How is that not a television show already? I mean,
Should be.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it picks up right after this one ends. Because he's still talking to her at the end, right? At the last scene.
Yeah. I mean, I think she's going to be around. Usually you move on after your high school romance, but I think he's stuck with her for the rest of his life.
He's got a girlfriend for life.
Kind of creepy, dead, often soaking wet girlfriend with a magical necklace. I never totally understood exactly why her necklace was so magical, but maybe it was just a representation of their love.
Yeah, and she was very good too. Maybe that's something that that the evil couldn't handle. All right, that was a ton of fun. So glad you picked that, and I got to see a new movie. What do we have on deck for next week?
Next time we are jumping all around with Time Cop. It has been a long time since I've seen this, but I'm a huge fan of any kind of time travel movie, and very excited to watch this one again.
Yeah, this is one I had the videotape of this. I used to watch this all the time, and now I don't think I've seen it for the past 20 years. So I'm very excited to go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So we'll see you all, or you guys will hear us all next week.
See ya.